This is the Creative Market Free Goods Roundup week of February 15th, 2016. And just a quick note on this video, you might notice the audio changing a little bit in terms of how it sounds as I changed the way I did audio after I recorded most of these 6 different free goods. So by next week, everything should be really consistent, but if you hear those differences on this week's video, that's the reason why, but hopefully it'll be an improvement moving forward. So first up this week, we have 20 Faces Flat Design. So this is a pack of 20 different cartoon style faces, and the file formats included are EPS shown right here as well as JPEG, but for the most expandability when using these, I think using the EPS file is probably going to be your best way to go. And there's 5 different files included, so this is the first one, and throughout all these 5 different files, the faces themselves are the same, so the faces will remain consistent, but the way they draw the faces, or at least shade them in, will change, so that'll be the main thing that's the difference here. So as you can tell by looking at this, there's a bunch of different options to pick from, all with a lot of really bright colors. So if you're looking for something really fun, really bright, this pack will be good for that purpose. And also there's a lot of different stylistic choices made here. So a lot of different hairstyles and things like that. So you can, of course, like many other sets like this, just ungroup certain elements and then bring them onto other ones. If that's something that you think might make these a little bit more interesting for you, you might have to close some gaps of areas like this one right here, where there was a crown on this one, for example, but I could of course have just taken that crown and put that on here as well. So as you can see, that is pretty easy to go in here and do that. Just customize these a little bit to make them feel a little bit more custom to what you're doing. But that's the first page right here. Here's the second page. So it's pretty much the exact same as the previous page, but this one is on a dark background and each one of these different faces has a shadow behind it. This is the third page included. So these are much more simplified in terms of the colors used. So a black and white line style for many of them, with a few of them having different colored in areas, primarily things like hats or their hair. This is the fourth page, and this is actually a seamless repeat. So by default, you'll see this right here, which is the main part of the repeat itself. But I went ahead and repeated this so you can see how this looks actually repeated out. So as you can tell, the repeat works very nicely, and they did a good job of making sure that this looks like a pretty varied set of faces. When you look at it from a distance, you don't see the repeating elements all that much unless you really pay close attention to it. So definitely a nice job on this one. And this one right here is the same one as the one previously, the only exception being that there is no dark background. And also I noticed I failed to copy over some of these dots right here, so they aren't shown across this entire repeat. But assuming you're not like me and you actually select everything before you copy this over, this will have those dots in all those places as well. But that's it for this pack. There's 20 different faces included in both EPS and JPEG format. So if you think these faces are cool and you have some projects in mind where they might be useful, just be sure to pick this up this week while it's still free. Next up, we have Saya FY Medium Italic. This font is providing both OpenType as well as TrueType font formats, and I have it opened up inside Illustrator here to show it. So as you can tell here, it is a nice sans serif font with a pretty basic appearance overall, but I also think overall this font has a pretty cool style, especially if you look at like the I and the J here, and then especially the K. I just think the overall style does have a little bit more fun than something like a Helvetica, which is a little bit more bland in its overall appearance. And this is also an italic version of this font, so all the letters will always be in italic when you use them. So here are the lowercase letters as you have seen. And I think one of the overall more interesting characteristics of this font are some of the swooshing kind of stylistic elements like the F here, how there's a lot of movement in letters that gives them a bit more motion than if they were just straight vertical and didn't have these little endpoints on them. And here are the uppercase letters, which are pretty self-explanatory. And it does include all the numbers 0 through 9 and then a whole bunch of different special characters as well. So if I select this right here and then go to type and then glyphs near the top, and I'll just scroll up through the different glyphs that are included. There's a ton of different special accented marks for different languages that are not English inside the Latin alphabet. And at the very bottom here as well, you can see there's things like fractions and then a bunch of different other special characters that you can go ahead and use. So this font is a very complete font when it comes to the amount of glyphs that are included. So that's always a very nice thing to see. And here I typed up Free Goods Roundup so you can see how it looks typed up into a sentence. As you can tell, the stock kerning looks pretty good. The stock spacing between the words is also very good. So I don't think I'll have to do a whole lot of modification when you go in and use this font, which is definitely a nice thing since I can see this font being used with large bodies of type as well as a headline font if you want to use it that way as well. But that's it for this font. If you like this font and you have some projects in mind where this one might come in handy, just be sure to grab it this week. Next up is Music Flat Instruments Illustrations. So this set is fairly straightforward, as it is 4 different silhouettes of different musical instruments, and there's 2 different EPS files included. So this is the first one, which has a blue background, and here is the second one, which has a series of different colored backgrounds. So you can feel free to mix and match these different elements if that's something you want to do across all of these backgrounds. And since the instruments across the 2 of these are the exact same, I'm just going to show you a way very quickly that you can get a little bit more use out of these if you want to do that. So if you bring off one of these to the side right here and then just click on it and then right click and then release clipping mask, as you can see there is a full instrument behind here that you could then use if you want to go in there and do that. So I think having the entire instrument to use might be a little bit more useful for some people that don't want to live within this little box right here. But if these work just fine for you, then feel free to do that, because of course you can double click inside of these different elements right here to go inside of them basically, and then you can select something like the type here, delete that, add in your own custom type, and then just double click again outside of that box to make it back into the smart object that it was right here. And that's actually pretty interesting that that happened. I don't know why. But in any case, there are 4 different musical instruments here to choose from and use. And you can either remove the type and put your own custom type in there. Once again, just use the selection tool, which is a black arrow, and double click inside of it. And then you can select the things that you want to use, or even move the guitar around. And as you can tell, if you move the guitar around, it does stay within that clipping mask. So it's pretty darn easy to go in there and customize how this is cropped if that's something you find interesting to do. But alternatively, you can ungroup it and then use the entire instrument and customize it from there, like change it from green to a different color, like let's say this sort of a red color right here. So it doesn't take much time to do customizations like that if that's something you want to do. But that's it for this set. If you're on the hunt for some very nicely rendered vector instruments, then this one might be worth picking up for you. Just be sure to grab it this week while it's still free. Next we have Summer Trip in a flat style. These icons are provided in EPS format, shown right here, as well as JPEG format, and then transparent background PNGs, but I think you'll get the most use out of either the EPS files or the transparent background PNGs, since they'll be just a little bit easier to go in and use. So there's 9 different pages as far as the EPS files go, which I'll be showing in this video right here. So here is the first one. As you can see, there's a bunch of different really well rendered elements that you can go ahead and use, all with the travel theme. So passport, sun, sunglasses, a map, some palm trees, and a really cool suitcase at the bottom here. So I just think overall these work very nicely together as a set, and they're also really fun to look at. Like the suitcase in particular just has a lot of style to it, where they could have very easily made just a suitcase, but instead they added these cool little stickers on it as well. That gives it just a little bit more character. So here is the second one, which is the same as the one previously, except no fills on this one. So this is just like the outlined version of. Here's the third page. So a lot of these are just sort of mix and matches of the elements provided on the first page. So we have the suitcase, sunglasses, and passport in a nice little arrangement if you want to do something a little bit easier and just use one of these pre-made ones, and then perhaps add your own custom type around the outside edges. So here's the fourth one, which is a nice little arrangement for perhaps a flyer or something similar to that. And all this type is outlined, so you can't just go in and use this and then retype your own stuff, but it would be very easy for you just to ungroup this, select the type that you might not want to use. So I'm just going to try to grab just the type here, and then type it out in a font of your choice to make some custom type options if you want to go in and do that. And also don't hesitate to go in and grab different elements. So if you don't want to use this camera and bird, for example, you could replace that with something else on this little beach scene, or move the sun up top and then move this around. So you can really mix and match all these different elements on these pre-made arrangements to make them even more custom, which is something I'd definitely recommend going in and doing if you want to use this for anything professional. And here's the fifth one. So this is a pretty crazy one, but this is actually a seamlessly repeating pattern. So I'll just go ahead and quickly drag this off to make the repeat happen, if I can do this pretty quickly. So as you can see, it doesn't take much time to make this into a seamless repeat, and the end result actually looks really good. So right here we have a really cool seamless repeating pattern that is very easy to expand. So perhaps if you had a front page of a flyer that's a lot of type and maybe a little bit more boring to look at, you could use this on the back to make it something that people want to pick up and really look at, because this is kind of an exciting visual right here with so much going on. Here's the sixth page. So this is another seamless repeating background, except this one has an actual background color to it. So like the one before, these repeat very easily and do a very nice job of repeating. And I think the overall effect is really cool, and it adds a lot of character to whatever you put this particular thing on. Here is the seventh one, which is a nice little arrangement of a seashell, a starfish, and then this life preserver. So once again, feel free to ungroup this, and then you can replace these elements with your own elements of your choosing if that's something you want to do. You might have to ungroup it a couple of times in order to grab the individual elements themselves. Here's the eighth one, which is another pre-made arrangement. Pretty nice job done on this one, and there are a bunch of different color options on these backgrounds as well, so feel free to use the backgrounds on these different arrangements like this one as a color inspiration if you're looking for some good color combinations to go with the items included. And here's the last page, same background as the one previously with a different set of items on top of it, but a pretty self-explanatory thing to look at right here. So that's it for this pack. There's a ton of different cool icons and then different arrangements of icons, and perhaps one of the neater things in this particular set are those seamlessly repeating backgrounds, which do a really nice job of combining all these different elements to make something that's very expandable and very usable on different items that you want to give a very bright and impactful appearance to. But that's it for this set. If you found this useful and you think you have some projects in mind where these might come in handy, just be sure to grab this one this week while it's still free. Next up is Identity, a personal site landing page. This is a one-page theme designed to be a landing page for different creative style businesses, and it also uses a preprocessor called SAS, which will make work a little bit easier if you ever use it, by allowing you to do things like making colors variables and a bunch of other useful stuff like that. So once you actually go in here and use SAS, you might find that to be a really helpful way of working. And also included in this particular set is a Photoshop file that is a full mock-up of this website, so I'm not going to show that here, but there is a Photoshop file that covers this entire page. So if you're looking for a nice template for web design in Photoshop, that is also available in this. So this is the entire page right here. So as you can tell, it's a one-page theme. If you click on this button up the top here that says Let's Work Together, it just drops you down to this very nice contact form with name, email, and then message, where you can then send the message below that. The footer right here will have different social icons to link people off to different social platforms. And above that, we have some happy clients. So there's a testimonial section where you can show off people that are excited about using your product. And then above that, we have some different tracking metrics. So if you want to show off how long you've been working for or how many clients or projects you've had, you can do that right here. Above that, we have the recent work. So clicking on one of these would normally take you to a separate page or perhaps a lightbox image, but in this case, it just links back up to the page itself. So once you download and use this particular theme, it'll be up to you to decide where you want these different projects to link to. So you can either have them linked to a separate page that you make yourself, or have a lightbox open up that just plops the image in front of you on the screen, or even link it off to somewhere like Dribbble, where you could then link it to that particular design's page. But this is just a nice and simple way of laying that out. We have a send me a message button above that, which brings you back to the contact thing at the very bottom. And then above that, we have some different areas where you can write about what you're good at doing. So design, branding, front end, but you can of course change these to apply to whatever it is that you want to do. And I did also notice that this particular theme uses Font Awesome icon set. So I'm assuming these are Font Awesome icons, but they might not be. But in any case, the Font Awesome icon set is web-based and has a ton of different options for what you could use for these different elements. So feel free to use that if you want to go in here and add some custom icons across this entire page. But that's it for this theme. As you can tell, it's a very nice and clean theme that does a great job of just displaying the work that you are currently working on, as well as some key things that you might want to show off, like client interaction or how many projects you have. So if you're on the hunt for a simple one-page theme that you could then expand to be much larger if you want to, like this could very easily have several different pages, then this one is definitely one worth checking out. Just be sure to do it this week while it's still free. And last up here, we have happy superhero character icons. This is a collection of 15 different superhero avatars, and the included file formats are Illustrator shown here, EPS, as well as JPEG. But I think to get the most use out of this particular set, you're going to want to use either the Illustrator file or the EPS file, just so they can be infinitely scalable and very easy to move around and modify should you want to do that. So this is a pretty straightforward set, and what you see right here is what you get with the set. But you can also customize these if you want to go in there and do that. So at any time you can just click one of these and then ungroup it, which will allow you to pull off just separate elements of these, and they are kind of nicely grouped. Like when I selected these eyeballs right here, it just selected the eyes. I'll do the same for these two little things off to the side of the eyes here and just drag this over on top of this guy, so you can see it's very easy to make custom versions of these. And of course, you could expand that even further if you wanted to by ungrouping elements like the hoods on this guy right here, bringing it on top of this one. And as you can see, it does a pretty nice job of fitting, although I'll have to eventually just bring this into the front here by going to Arrange, Bring to Front. And then I'll want to also select these eyes and this thing right here and bring those to the front. But as you can tell, it's very easy to go in here and make some custom variations of these different elements if that's something that you think you'll find useful. And also, of course, you can change the colors of these different elements as well. So let's say you don't want this to be this particular blue color. You can just use the eyedropper tool by hitting I and selecting different colors from all these different elements here. And then you can make some really cool custom stuff fairly easily. But that's it for this set. It's pretty straightforward, as what you see right here is what you get. But feel free to mix and match different elements from all these different avatars that are included here to make some custom stuff that'll make these a little bit more unique to you. But that's it for this set. If you like it and you think you'll have some use out of it, just be sure to grab it this week. So that's it for this week's free goods, and do remember they are free this week only. So if you saw something you liked, just check out the description below this video where you'll find a link to download each one of these 6 different free items. And as always, if you found this video helpful, please like and favorite. And if you want to see this video every week, please subscribe. This video is released every Monday to let you know it's free this week on Creative Market. Thanks so much for watching.